It's happening. The blood moon and total lunar eclipse has passed, but now the second week of September begins. And the truth is, the eclipse didn't end when the sky cleared. Its energy is still here, moving through this week, shaping what comes next. This isn't just another week on the calendar, it's a turning point. What the moon revealed in shadow is now working its way into your daily life. Most people won't understand it. They'll think everything is back to normal. But you know better. You can already feel that something is different. This week is not about waiting. It's about noticing, acting, and choosing because the eclipse left a mark. And what happens now will decide how you carry it forward. So before we go into this, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and type 777 in the comments. This second week of September is not ordinary. The moon is still charged from the blood eclipse, and its shadow stretches into these days. This isn't calm. It's aftermath, the kind that reveals what was cracked open and pushes it further until you can't look away. Symbolically, this week is exposure. The moon doesn't just light the sky, it reflects what you've tried to avoid. And after an eclipse, those reflections cut deeper. You may feel it as emotions rising suddenly, as tension in relationships, as decisions you can't postpone any longer. And that's why it matters. This week is the point of no return. What you face now shapes the path ahead. What you ignore only grows heavier. Right now, the shadow of the eclipse is still moving through you, whether you notice it or not. The second week of September carries moon warnings that strike deeper than what we see in the sky. They move into your thoughts, your habits, your connections. And what's being revealed isn't random. It's the exact part of your life that can't remain the same. Think about it. How often do you push aside the feelings that don't fit your routine? You stay busy, distracted, certain that later will be the time to deal with them. But later rarely comes. The moon isn't interested in waiting for your convenience. It reflects everything you've delayed. It brings what you've tried to silence into the open, and this week it refuses to stay in the background. This can feel uncomfortable, even heavy. For some, it might come as unexpected tension in relationships, conversations that suddenly turn sharp, truths that slip out, or distance that feels wider than before. For others, it might show up in quiet ways, memories rising uninvited, emotions that don't match the moment, or the feeling that something inside you is asking for release. None of this is weakness. It's the process of recognition. Life often works like this. You ignore the subtle hints, the whispers, until they gather enough weight to appear as a warning. The moon has always been the mirror of the human heart, and after an eclipse, that mirror becomes sharper. It doesn't just reflect who you are. It reflects what you've avoided becoming. That's why this week matters. It's not about punishment, it's about awareness. A moment where you are given the chance to finally acknowledge what's already been true. Maybe you've noticed patterns repeating. The same arguments, the same doubts, the same fears circling back no matter how many times you try to bury them. That's the energy now. The second week of September won't let you keep circling. It demands a choice. Not tomorrow, not next season, now. And yes, this can feel like pressure, but pressure isn't always destructive. Think of it like the way coal transforms into a diamond. It doesn't happen in ease or comfort. It happens under weight, under force. The question isn't whether the pressure will come. It already has. The question is whether you'll use it to harden into something unbreakable or allow it to crush what you've been building. Right now, you are being asked to reflect not in broad, vague terms, but in the specifics of your daily life. Who drains your energy the moment you step into the room? What habits keep you tied to versions of yourself you've outgrown? Which decisions are you postponing because you're afraid of what will happen if you finally make them? The moon's warnings aren't abstract. They're personal. They land exactly where you've refused to look. And here's the truth. Most people miss. Clarity doesn't always feel like clarity. Sometimes it feels like chaos at first. You lose what's false before you recognize what's real. That's why this week matters so much. If you only measure it by comfort, you'll think you're failing. But if you measure it by what's being revealed, you'll realize you're finally seeing the path forward. September 9th to 15th carries a rhythm that doesn't match the ordinary calendar. These days move like chapters in a book where the tone shifts and the plot thickens. Nothing is as flat or routine as it might appear on the surface. The air is charged not with fear but with invitation. Invitation to examine, to redirect, to choose with sharper intention. September 9th, something opens. Many call it the 999 portal, a gateway moment marked by alignment, not only in numbers but in energy. 3 nines together symbolize conclusion and continuation at once. Think of it like finishing a long season of your life series. The finale doesn't mean the story is over. It means the setup for the next arc is already underway. The 9999 portal is not about loss. It's about finality that prepares the ground for what comes next. So, what does that mean for you in practice? It means paying attention to where you've already outgrown something. Maybe it's a commitment that no longer excites you, a routine that feels more like a cage than a choice, or even a way of thinking that limits what you allow yourself to expect. September 9th hands you a mirror, not to shame you, but to help. You recognize which parts of your story can't continue into the next chapter. But here's where it gets interesting. Endings often don't announce themselves in loud, dramatic ways. They slide into your awareness quietly, like realizing one morning that your favorite shirt no longer fits or noticing a song you once loved doesn't stir the same response anymore. That's how life signals change. Small signals that add up to undeniable truth. And on this date, you're invited to acknowledge them honestly. By September 10th, the tone deepens. What began as recognition shifts into choice. This is not a day for standing still. It's a day for direction. Think of it like standing at a crossroads where both paths stretch far ahead, but only one align with the person you are becoming. Choosing doesn't mean you'll have instant clarity about everything that follows, but it does mean you commit to motion instead of waiting for circumstances to drag you along. Guidance here comes in simplicity. Start where you are. You don't need to map out the next 10 years. You don't need to carry every possible option in your head. Ask yourself one question. Which decision brings you closer to the version of yourself that feels honest, aligned, unforced? The answer might be subtle, but it's rarely absent. September 10th also carries the weight of persistence. Change isn't about a single step. It's about a willingness to keep walking even when the horizon is unclear. Think of a long staircase where you can't see the landing yet. Every step is progress, even if you don't yet know how many remain. Trust in the movement itself. That's what this date emphasizes. Progress through steady action, not perfect clarity. Then comes September 11th, a day where reflection takes a sharper edge. By now, the questions you've been avoiding may rise with more intensity. It's not designed to overwhelm you, it's designed to wake you. Sometimes we only recognize what we truly value when circumstances strip away the noise. On this day, look closely at where you've invested your energy. Are you building structures that support your growth, or are you reinforcing walls that keep you small? One way to work with this energy is through pruning. Think of a garden. Growth doesn't mean letting every branch extend unchecked. It means trimming back what no longer serves the larger picture in your life. This could mean reducing commitments that drain you, setting clearer boundaries with people who overstep, or reorganizing your priorities so your time actually reflects what matters most. The empowering part here is simple. You're not at the mercy of these days. The moon warnings of the second week of September aren't designed to alarm you. They're meant to equip you. They shine light on what's fragile so you can strengthen it. And they reveal what's expired so you can release it. It's not about being tested. It's about being prepared. The 999 portal mentioned earlier connects again, here. When cycles close, they create room for breakthroughs. Imagine carrying a backpack so full that you can't add anything new without it tearing apart. That's what life feels like when you refuse to let go. These days remind you to empty the unnecessary so you can actually carry what matters. Without space, nothing new can land. With space, possibilities expand. Practical advice flows directly from this. Start small. Look at one corner of your life that feels overcrowded. Maybe your schedule, your commitments, or even your mental space. Ask yourself, what can I set down even temporarily so I can move lighter? Lightness doesn't mean avoidance. It means clarity. When you free your hands, you can finally reach for something new. As you move through these days, pay attention to conversations. Words exchanged during this time may hold more weight than usual. Sometimes guidance arrives not through meditation or solitude, but through an unexpected comment from a friend, a passing phrase from a stranger, or even a line you come across in a book. The universe speaks in fragments, and this week those fragments align. One of the most empowering things you can do is treat these days as checkpoints rather than obstacles. A checkpoint is not meant to stop you. It's meant to make sure you're carrying the right things forward. September 9th clears. September 10th directs. September 11th sharpens. Each day builds on the last, not in isolation but in sequence. The advice here is practical. Write down the themes that arise on each of these days. Don't dismiss them as random. Patterns often only reveal themselves when you step back and connect the dots. By the end of the week, you'll see how the pieces fit together, and that awareness will give you a kind of map for what comes next. And always remember this: you don't have to navigate these dates with perfection. Guidance isn't about flawless execution. It's about honest engagement. If you stumble, if you hesitate, it doesn't erase the progress you've made. What matters most is your willingness to keep stepping into alignment, no matter how small the step seems in the moment. This is the real gift of September's second week. Not to overwhelm you with pressure, but to remind you that choice is power. You don't control every circumstance, but you control how you respond. You control what you carry. And in times like these, that is everything. September 12th arrives with a quieter energy, but don't mistake that for emptiness. This day is about integration. The earlier part of the week has asked you to recognize, to choose, to cut back what doesn't fit. Now the focus shifts toward absorbing what those choices mean. Think of it like pressing pause in a song. Not to stop the music, but to really hear the echo of what just played. The quiet spaces between beats hold their own kind of power. On this day, you may notice yourself reviewing conversations from earlier in the week or replaying decisions you've made. That's not wasted time. It's recalibration. Sometimes we underestimate the value of processing. Imagine trying to run a marathon without pausing to breathe. Integration is that pause. It gives your mind and your heart a chance to line up with each other. September 13th carries momentum again. It's like standing at a window when the curtains are pulled wide and suddenly you can see further than before. The horizon looks different, not because the world changed overnight, but because you did. When you shift internally, your external view follows. This is a day that encourages vision, not vague wishes, but clear direction. Write down one possibility you've been afraid to say out loud. Maybe it's a career move, a relationship decision, or even a personal challenge you've avoided. The act of naming it is the first step toward grounding it. Vision is not only about seeing, it's about admitting what you see. By September 14th, the pace picks up again. This is often when hidden resistance shows up. Think of it like cleaning out a drawer. You start with energy, removing the obvious clutter, but then you reach the bottom and find items that stir memories or emotions you'd rather not face. That's what this day is about. Resistance is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign you're uncovering something meaningful. The advice here is to move gently but firmly. Don't shove everything back into the drawer just because it's uncomfortable. Instead, hold each piece up and ask yourself, does this still belong in my life? Or is it here only out of habit? When you make these decisions with honesty, you free yourself from being weighed down by what no longer belongs. Then comes September 15th, a day of alignment. It's not the kind of alignment that makes everything perfect. It's the kind that makes everything real. By now, the work of the week has cleared, directed, and sharpened you. This day ties the threads together. This is where the 999 portal echoes again, not as a repeat of September 9th, but as a reminder. Endings and beginnings exist side by side, and by the 15th you can see that truth more clearly. What you've chosen to release now reveals what you're truly ready to carry forward. It's the moment where the cluttered noise fades and what remains feels solid, meaningful, undeniable. Think of it like tuning an instrument. At first the sound may waver, uncertain, But with each adjustment, the notes come into clarity. By the 15th, the tuning settles. The chord strikes true. That's alignment. Now let's talk about what to actually do with this week's energy. One piece of advice: simplify your commitments. Look at your calendar, your routines, your daily choices. Ask yourself, are these shaping the person I want to be, or are they draining me into someone I barely recognize? Practical change doesn't always require massive upheaval. Sometimes it begins with one adjustment. Maybe cutting back an hour on something that no longer adds value. Maybe dedicating that same hour to learning, creating, or connecting in ways that expand you. Relationships also come under focus in these days. This isn't about conflict. It's about clarity. Notice who consistently supports your growth and who pulls you back into old patterns. You don't have to cut ties harshly, but you do need to adjust how much influence each person has in your decisions. Relationships are like mirrors, and during this stretch the reflections are sharper. Pay attention to which mirrors make you stronger. On a personal level, guidance comes down to trust. Not blind faith, but conscious trust. Trust in the steps you've taken this week. Trust that the pruning, the choosing, the aligning, all of it is moving you towards something bigger. Even if you can't see the full picture yet, transformation rarely looks polished while it's happening. It looks messy, uncertain, even uncomfortable. But on the other side, it always reveals its purpose. September 12th through 15th aren't random dates on a page. They form a sequence. Together they invite you to integrate, to expand your vision, to confront resistance, and finally to align. If you treat them like isolated events, you'll miss the continuity. But if you see them as linked, you'll recognize how each day builds the next layer of your progress. The wisdom here is not complicated. Keep moving, keep noticing, keep choosing. Don't dismiss the small insights or the subtle nudges. They are the building blocks of the larger transformation unfolding in your life. And remember, the second week of September is not a warning designed to paralyze you. It's guidance meant to prepare you. The moon's influence during these days highlights what you cannot ignore any longer. Not as punishment, but as a gift. Because when the hidden becomes visible, you finally have the power to change it. By the close of September 15th, you'll likely look back and see patterns you didn't recognize before. You may realize that the challenges of the week weren't setbacks. They were signals. Signals pointing you toward the next version of yourself, the one waiting on the other side of release and alignment. September's second week does not simply pass by like a page in a calendar. It carries an intensity that shapes how the rest of the season unfolds. The days have been layered with echoes of choices, endings, and awakenings. By this stage, you are standing at the threshold of something larger, something that demands attention, not because it is loud, but because it is undeniable. Every year delivers moments where the ordinary rhythms of life tighten into focus. For many, those moments come and go unnoticed, blending into routines buried under distractions. But occasionally an alignment arrives that refuses to be ignored. And that is what these days have carried you toward. The moon warnings of the second week of September are not simply symbols in the sky. They are markers of a turning point that speaks directly to how you live, how you act, and how you choose to step forward. Consider the way change often begins. It rarely starts with dramatic announcements or sudden upheavals. It begins in the pauses, in the subtle recognition that something is no longer the same. That recognition grows until it becomes impossible to deny. This week has been that kind of buildup. And now you stand at the edge where recognition transforms into action. The buildup has brought you here to the climactic moment where clarity sharpens and decisions can no longer be postponed. The moon's role in all of this is more than symbolic light in the sky. It mirrors the internal tides you carry, quiet currents that shape emotions, decisions, and directions even when you don't consciously acknowledge them. The total eclipse that opened this month left an imprint, a reminder that shadows cannot be hidden forever. The days since have unfolded like steps on a staircase, each one leading to the point you now face. This is the height of that climb where the view opens and the choice is undeniable. For many, this is where resistance becomes strongest. It is easier to hold on to the familiar, even when it weighs you down, than to embrace the unknown. But holding on at this stage only tightens the grip of frustration, while stepping forward opens doors that could not appear any other way. The turning point is never comfortable, but it is always liberating. This is where old cycles complete themselves and new cycles demand entry. Think about the ways in which you've been repeating habits, conversations, or roles that no longer match the person you are becoming. You may have noticed the strain of staying in them, the lack of energy when you try to keep them alive. These are the parts of your life asking to be released, not because they were mistakes, but because they've run their course. And when something has completed its purpose, the most empowering choice you can make is to honor it and then step beyond it. The climactic energy of this moment lies in that decision to carry forward only what aligns with growth. It is not about rushing into dramatic changes or abandoning everything overnight. It is about honesty. Honesty with yourself about what uplifts you and what depletes you. Honesty about what contributes to your future and what chains you to your past. The moon highlights these truths not as judgment but as guidance. Transformation has always been less about external circumstances and more about the internal permission to move differently. You could have every opportunity lined up in front of you, but without the internal decision to claim them, they pass by unnoticed. Conversely, even in challenging circumstances, if you choose to shift your direction, opportunities emerge from unexpected places. That is the heart of this turning point. It is your choice that activates the change. Imagine standing on a bridge where one side is the familiar shore you've always known, and the other side is the horizon you cannot yet define. The bridge itself is this weak. The climactic moment is the middle, where turning back would only prolong dissatisfaction, and moving forward requires courage. This is where you are now, on that bridge at the midpoint where the decision becomes unavoidable. Many people underestimate how much strength they already carry. They assume courage is something you gain only after you've succeeded. But the truth is that courage shows up the moment you decide to move despite uncertainty. This is why the turning point is so powerful. It doesn't demand perfection, only willingness. Willingness to let go, to step forward, to trust that what is closing is making space for something greater. This week has already carried messages through conversations, coincidences, and realizations. The climactic energy is not about waiting for another sign. It is about acting on what you already know. The challenge is not a lack of clarity. The challenge is the hesitation to trust what you've already seen. That hesitation is the final barrier, and crossing it is the breakthrough. September has always been a month of intersections where the balance between endings and beginnings is sharper than at any other time. The moon warnings are a reminder that ignoring this balance only delays growth, while acknowledging it accelerates transformation. You may not control the cosmic cycles, but you do control how you meet them. You choose whether they pass as background noise or become the catalyst. In practical terms, this is where you are being called to act not impulsively, but decisively. Identify one area of your life where hesitation has kept you stuck. It could be a project you keep postponing, a conversation you avoid, a commitment you know is draining you. This turning point is the invitation to address it directly. Take one step, make the call, set the boundary, start the project. This is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to remind you that within these moon warnings lies opportunity. Opportunity to reshape your direction, to lighten your steps, to clarify your path. That is why this week matters. It is not about predicting what will happen. It is about empowering you to meet what unfolds with strength and purpose. And so the climax of this story comes to you directly. These days have carried you here, and what you choose to do with them is entirely in your hands. You can allow them to pass, telling yourself it was only another week, or you can use them as the turning point that redefines how the rest of the year, and perhaps even the rest of your life unfolds. This is your challenge. Honor what is closing, act on what is clear, and step toward what is calling you. Do it without waiting for certainty. Do it without waiting for permission. The turning point does not arrive twice. It is here now, and it is yours to claim. September 9th to 15th has carried more weight than most weeks. The second week of September 2025 is not passing without purpose. The moon warnings have highlighted what can no longer remain hidden and what must now be embraced. These days are not about waiting for some distant breakthrough. They are about recognizing that transformation is already underway. The events in the sky mirror what is happening within, urging movement away from what drains and toward what strengthens. Hope is not fragile here. It is powerful. It grows when action meets awareness. By responding to what has surfaced during this week, you open space for clarity and growth that extends far beyond September. Now it is your turn to share. What has this week stirred in your life? Drop a comment below and let it be heard. For those ready to stay connected to these shifts, subscribe and join this community so you never miss what's ahead. Next week, we'll uncover how the closing stretch of September continues to shape the path forward, preparing you for an even greater alignment.